Yep, and sounds are banned out, so you want to pick the Bane. I really like that they turn around for the Rubik. If they pick Rubik Sand King right now, I'd be incredibly pleased. That's the heroes that I'm kind of thinking in the back of my head because right now they want to erase their memories of the previous game. They want to get more active. They want to do something with their spells. They want just a blink stun, something like that to really get them going here. Don't think we're probably going to see the Moo Earthshaker. I don't think I can imagine that there, but
Oh,
instead. Okay, that's not Sand
another
King, but
centaur.
another Centaur. And honestly, it worked very well in the game that it was picked and played, but still, it's not your best. It's not a Tide Hunter. It's just simply not Tide. And we'll have to see how he ends up actually playing. But if anything, this is actually a big improvement on what was the Timbersaw the previous game. If Simply Two Base are going to try to play this lineup exactly like how Infamous did, then the Centaur is going to slot in incredibly nicely with the Stampede. It just means that this Gyrocopter and Dawnbreaker have a way to finally get out. It was the few times that Infamous were getting punished is when they dove a little bit too deep and then they have no escape plan. Now, the Centaur is the escape plan. The only problem, you're playing versus a Bat Rider. That's a pretty
Yeah.
annoying hero, but we'll have to see what they do in regards to that because there isn't enough time to counter this Bat Rider at this point.
Yeah, you've got what? One pick left and some bans that at this point really need to be geared towards Lumiere's hero pool. So, well, not 100% sure what they're going to do. That Bat Rider may have caught them by surprise a little bit, but they do still have a lineup here, honestly, that doesn't look too bad, right? The Centaur, as you said, it's not the Tide Hunter, but you've got some frontline skill, you've got yourself a little bit of lockdown, you've got the Stampede, so if the Gyrocopter's finding his farm, you can still make your way into these engagements and try to win him out, because as of right now, we're still missing Lumiere's hero, but Infamous's damage output is not fantastic. You've got some magic damage maybe from the Bat Rider, but the Mars really does not step into that damage-dealing role at any point. So if you can take away some of the more problematic heroes that Lumiere could play, then maybe two-based will be able to mitigate some of those concerns. And yeah, the Luna, definitely one of those high damage heroes that they didn't want to deal with.
Yeah,
Medusa.
Medusa also very good band. They want to get rid of as many win conditions as possible that Lumiere could end up playing. And of course, you need a Mr. Jeans hero on the Simply 2 base side. Of course, the most interesting thing would be if Mr. Jeans ends up playing this gyrocopter and then some wacky shenanigans takes place, but it really does not feel like a Mr. Jeans hero. Of course, they're very adept with their banning on Infamous. We've seen so many times the Batrider matchup just get completely washed by this Queen of Pain pick. But now we're at the end of the draft. If there really is any hero for Lumiere to pick, I don't think we're going to see something like the Troll, for instance, that I think he was one of the last few trolls in the world for a little while there. I think we probably need that win condition because in very similar fashion to what was picked up in the previous series with Batrider Mars, you need someone who does literally everything, who gets you into the pit, who gets you onto the buildings. It's one situation where I think now Infamous are considering, do we ban out the Leshrac here? Do we look at what? Okay, Viper. That's a different direction. I feel like it's got to be the Lesh, though, on Simply 2 Base. I feel like that's the best Mr. Jeans hero really left in the pool. If they're not going for a Lesh, they could just try to go for the bad matchup, pick up a hero like the Void Spirit, where you're just betting on losing the lane and then hoping that you can make comebacks in different ways. But I think if I had to choose any hero, it'd probably be Lesh. But on Infamous' side, they do need that alma mater. They need that hero that's going to do absolutely everything. And I don't know, are we going to see the Lumiere PL again? It's hard to say, honestly, because they don't really have the best lockdown on two base side. It feels like that's another issue that they're going to need to shore up with Mr. Jean's pick, but it really is difficult to say because again, Infamous were on the money. They've banned out Mr. Jeans. All of his heroes are more or less gone. He could go for the Lena again, but
Oh,
okay, he's Gunner.
okay, yeah, I mean, much like Gunner, yeah, Mr. Jeans has maybe a minor reputation with the mid LC, but like we said, when Gunner picked it up, mid Legion Commander really is not much of a thing anymore, and we saw Four Zoomers in particular struggle with the lineup that was not built around the mid LC, but at least featured it. So it is a risk for sure, but at least you have that LC against the Bad Rider, much like they did in the previous sort of time we saw this particular matchup. I just don't know if it's really going to be enough to matter. And now,
There's some.
Lumiere Ursa coming out for the Infamous side. So there's going to be that damage dealer. I mentioned earlier on, maybe their lineup was a little bit lacking in terms of that actual physical damage, but if the Ursa's allowed to get into that fight and just run wild, no one on TOOBASED can really stand up against him.
Yeah, and yet again, we're seeing a team be really good at one thing, and that's what Infamous is so good at doing. All of these heroes just run at you. Every single member of their team is just going to be dogpiling, and that's where TOOBASED, and it is going to be a Mr. Gene's Legion commander, they are going to kind of sit here and just try to hold. I like the Benjaz this time around is going to be on an offlaner that can definitely stall out the game just a little bit more, and unfortunately for Infamous, in Alone's hero, they weren't able to pick up another hero that, again, is going to let them cross the river, that's going to push them into that tower. That's where Benjaz is going to feel incredibly strong on the centaur whenever that mid-game eventually begins, and that's where we're going to be looking at Sacred to probably make that jump. But I do think that Infamous are very happy with their lineup. If they can get out of the lanes in any fashion, it's the collapse that always comes from these players and these heroes where they suddenly show up 5 heroes in Boris's lane, and Gyro is a much less elusive hero than the Morphling. Boris is just going to have to sit and fight, and that's where I think TOOBASED have done a better job of getting heroes that can fight, but it's still going to be pretty rough, I think.
Yeah, they're going to have their work cut out for them, that's for sure. But, well, I mean, I don't want to sound too mean saying this, but it can't get much worse than I think it did for them in game number 1, right? So, is it an ideal set of circumstances? Well, maybe not, but they're just going to have to do really the best that they can here and see what this can do for them, as we are going to get this final game of the day underway. We're just going to have mass tips onto Benjaz again, so I don't know. A little bit of teasing, a little bit of respect though for Benjaz, one of the more experienced players in really the entirety of South America. So anytime you get a chance to sort of poke fun at him a little bit, they're going to take that opening as Empyrean just marching his way across the river, trying to check for any sort of early wards. Of course, honestly, it feels like that move was maybe a little bit too early. He was so quick to get out there. Not really sure anyone else would have beaten him to it unless they had specifically smoked for it. But, better safe than sorry. Push out, see if there's a ward. He was holding on to 2 sentries as well, so he was straight up ready for that D ward play. But isn't really any play to be made right now. But Infamous, is this doable? Do they really want this? Benjaz is just dancing on the rune spawn. Every time you look at these sort of early fights, though, you have to be cautious of what it would cost, right, to actually start that fight in terms of what you're taking at level 1 and how that affects your actual lane. So, looks like Infamous really aren't going to take much of a risk at all. Lumiere is, well, he's trying to sneak for this rune, but Widge is in front of him. So yeah, that play is really not going to work out, and no funny business there on the rune spawn. It's just a 2-2 split. And well, they do have this nice ward from Michael here up on the high ground. That gives them a nice bit of vision over these 2 camps in particular. Of course, well, with the way that these lanes are set up, I don't know how much Empyrean's really going to play in, well, I guess this further camp. He is obviously going to be looking for some of that pull control, but it is interesting. We'll see what Michael and Sacred choose to do with that, if they actually look to play aggressively with some of that vision. But for now, just now getting things underway. Michael already going to work with the Illuminate.
Yep, and that's where Empyrean just needs to mirror Michael as much as he can. Oh, he's trying to go for the wave on Michael, but good body blocking from Empyrean. I think Michael is respecting his hero a little bit here. Does definitely not want to just allow that wave to get cut, because, of course, it is slightly unfortunate because Boris did pull the creep wave into the tower, so this is inevitably going to push into that Mars, but doing a good job getting aggressive, and Sacred's going to get a few right clicks here, and ooh, dodges the Illuminate instead. Good decision making.
This is the thing for this Keeper of the Light. We've kind of gotten used to the high level play from the Coddle, right? But I suppose to a certain extent it does bear mentioning that Illuminate comes out, it doesn't connect. That's 100 mana. That's not nothing. Normally we don't really care because it's hitting onto the targets that you want, so you're willing to pay that price. But if Empyrean and Boris can actually manage to stay out of that line of fire, Michael's going to burn a lot of his mana as they try to go in there, not going to be able to find the play. But up in the top lane, Benjaz and Widge, they make the move onto Lumiere. They've got him with the telekinesis into the hoof stomp, and we do have a bit of a pause coming out after the fact, but TOOBASED, able to draw first blood in A. This is the problem with this Bane play. You have the Brain Sap at level 1, so there's no defensive nightmare to try and break that up.
Yep, they hit right when they needed to. They got exactly what they wanted, and Centaur, one of the strongest level 2 heroes, right alongside with Rubik. It really just gets to the point where you just explode onto the carry, and I'm assuming Lumiere was pretty far up in the wave. Of course, you're playing Ursa, you need to be in your opponent's faces, and the only way that Benjas and Widge will really lose this lane is if they let a few too many easy levels go over to A's hand, but otherwise, these trades should be very efficient for them, at least early on.
Yeah, they are going to have a potential advantage to exploit. It didn't help there for Infamous that Lumiere at level 1 only had the Fury Swipes, so there's really not a lot he can do to stand his ground in that situation either, and Benjas and Widge knew that, so they strike first, they get that first blood on the board, and now, well, if you're Infamous, this combo that they put together, I mean, it does cost a fair bit of mana, but they are going to be able to pull it off pretty frequently. As middle lane, yeah, Mr. Jeans is just going to get run down. He has a few more seconds for the press of the attack, but alone didn't quite catch up. There's the press of the attack coming out, but now I don't think either one of these two really want this fight to keep on going. They are going to be backing off, but Mr. Jeans, nerves of steel, really. He waits that one out. He knows if alone can't actually catch up to me, I am going to get the press of the attack off, and again, he waited so long for those wand charges. He's trying to get the bait play. Alone won't fall for it, but they're playing with fire on both sides of this matchup.
Yeah, it's a very volatile matchup. Unfortunately, no small camp blocking shenanigans, so we're not going to see the Batrider slowed down at all, and I think that's where, as much as you can hem and haw about it, Batrider is just eventually going to move over to the small camp and eventually start to outfarm you, and there's no way for LC to catch up. Gunnar went for the max Q build whenever he was playing it just to try and farm with that small camp, but I don't know if that's really going to be the best choice. Meanwhile, they kill Empyrean in the river, though.
What a long chase. That started in the lane. It went all the way through to the river. He got about halfway up the river before the spear was thrown to finish him off. So, a lot of work had to be done to get that kill. But Infamous will get it. Sacred able to get himself back into the lane fairly quickly here as well. So Boris is not exactly being given free farm in this scenario. But you look at the Gyro, 20 last hits in this lane. It's really just the situation for the Gyrocopter. He will farm here. We'll probably see him start shifting into the jungle. Maybe not immediately, but in the near future as well. So the actual outcome of this lane itself is maybe a little bit less important for that TOOBASED side, which is part of the reason why Empyrean realized, hey, if I can have these guys chase me for what felt like half an hour into the river, might as well go for it.
Yeah, and really, I think the biggest problem, and it was a problem that was in the first game, is who is going to come to Boris's lane once heroes start to actually exist here, and that's where, unfortunately, once Sacred has the button, once he's able to just plop an arena down on these heroes, everyone is very, very vulnerable to that Mars still, and even Empyrean, it's just going to be hard to play support in this type of game. Infamous just run at you over and over and over again, and alone, taking a huge small camp stack, just trying to be efficient, see how fast he's going to be able to get his boots of travel this game.
Yeah, we've seen those Batriders. They've been hitting that timing, honestly, never late. I don't think we'd ever sort of describe it as that. The only times where it's been a problem is that you're still getting your boost of travel around like 10 minutes, but you wanted it at 8, things of that nature. But if alone is able to just sort of farm those small camps, if there's no breakup of that farming rhythm, he is going to have that item up. And Mr. Jeans, I mean, what would he have around the same time? He's working his way towards maybe some phase boots here early on, but I don't really see any sort of major item he could pick up that would match up with those bots once alone can pick him up. So he is going to continue to farm. He is a little bit behind on levels, though. Mr. Jeans did get his ult. Alone, just now hit his level 6. But with the last one online, maybe they could look to make a play. We did have Michael rotate over for just the briefest amount of time, but that might be enough to set up for something out of Sacred. Boris and Empyrean did try to push forward, but well, this is one of the benefits of having the Mars, right? He can hold his own in the lane for a little while, and now with Michael back in, they're going to look for the spear stun. They did connect onto Empyrean, but Sacred doesn't want to go any further forward. He already used the rebuke, and with Boris right there to potentially counter out the damage, they'd rather not take the risk.
Yeah, they really don't want to feed down here. They just want to be as peaceful as they can. There was also a lasso that ended up going down mid, and unfortunately, Alone was unable to claim it. But that's also where you look over at what Michael's been doing for a big portion of his time, and Alone's going to be real happy with this one. Not sure if this is even going to stack again. Well, okay,
Oh, they
looks like
got
he's
it.
got it, but this is a huge stack for Alone, and there's nothing that anyone can really do. They don't even know about it on the 2-base side. They've been so caught up in trying to get vision of Michael in the bot lane that they've actually missed this, and they're scanning it out
They,
as well, but
yeah.
they gotta go fast. Unfortunately, I think they're too slow.
Yeah, Mr. Jeans will not arrive in time, and I mean, he's still here, so is he going to try something? Up in the top lane, well, they already did try something. A gets taken down, but Lumiere able to turn that into a trade-off as they will trade A for Widge, but the fight is also breaking out down bot. Sacred, he's been pretty tanky to this point in the game, but Mr. Jeans able to sidestep that spear. They get the duel down, and Sacred should be falling here. Mr. Jeans getting his first duel win. And overall, it turns into a 2-for-1 trade that does go into base favor, but you also do have to take into account the fact that the Bat Rider, while that happened, pretty much took the entirety of that stack and walked away with really no significant consequences. And now, oh, Mr. Jeans. There's no lasso here, but he does get knocked back a little bit. But, okay. With only Michael here in support, there's really not a whole lot they can do fight-wise. But A's coming in as well. The Nightmare will be deployed. And Widge is going to try to come in, but there's no shard, so we can't directly hit Mr. Jeans. They're going to try to get him out, though, with the press the attack into the Stampede. And that is enough. Mr. Jeans falls back. Alone, though, he's thinking about it. He's got the lasso, and he's got that lasso connection. They'll pull him back in. The Illuminate is there for the damage, and, well, unfortunately, the Stampede isn't going to work out too much. And now Empyrean actually gets knocked back by the Flame Break as well. They're going to hit him up with that Blinding Light, and he just can't go anywhere. Tries to get away with that jump to the hammer, but I think he's still falling. And Infamous, I mean, it sounds a little too simplistic to say it this way, but it is true. They are just a team that runs at you, and that time around, 2-base weren't prepared to be run at the 8-minute mark.
Yeah, and Alone got his boots of travel coming out on the courier right now. It is becoming a problem where how are we going to find our plays this game? Is it going to be the Blink Dagger coming in from Ben Jazz? Is it going to be, again, the rotation from Mr. Jeans? And he's going to try bottom, but okay, just to save Boris.
Yeah, at least they do keep him alive there, because Boris was in a bit of a bad way. The homing missile is flying, but Michael should be pretty much under the tower by the time that connects. Yeah, I don't really think they want to dive that. They're certainly thinking about it, but no one has a blink. I mean, only the Legion Commander even has upgraded boots at this point, so that is not a situation where they can just dive in for that kill. But they do move their way into the west side jungle. This time around, though, there are no stacks here. This has already all been farmed out, so there's really not a whole lot for them to gain in this particular area, but, well, maybe Empyrean could get a ward down if nothing else, but there's the ward. Gonna throw it mid, but Alone is pushing his way forward. Flame Break is there, but he doesn't have any of his other abilities, so yeah, not gonna go after that one just yet. Although, as I say that, Mr. Jeans gotta be a little bit careful. There may not be a lasso, but they're still pushing their way forward, trying to get that Firefly damage down. Don't think it's gonna happen, but they are looking to push their way towards the rune. Empyrean, can he win that foot race? Absolutely not. Alone is gonna bottle up that haste rune. If he had the lasso, he'd probably be going in right now, but he's got to wait a few more seconds before he can make that play happen, or maybe he doesn't. He's just going to pop the haste and push forward. Empyrean's got 4 stacks, now 5 of the napalm, and he may just tick down to this DOT. The Flame Break connects, but press the attack will be there. So Empyrean will be saved, but now Alone. He's got Firefly, he's got lasso. Doesn't have the haste any longer, though, and heroes are too far away for him to jump in on. But Infamous, again, they just keep on looking. They're so aggressive right now in terms of looking for those opportunities for the fight.
Yeah, and a hero like Kato really does just accentuate how much they are running at their opponents with the max level chakra as well. It's just every single time, and it's small things like a double sticky napalm, or suddenly you've got 4 stacks on top of you, and then a random flame break clips you. And I think that's where Mr. Jeans has done a really good job of going for this press the attack build, not being nearly as greedy as what Gunner actually ended up going, but that's where the LC is going to fall behind. You are not going to farm on this hero, and that was the same trap that Gunner fell into, where suddenly you don't have the items to contend with your opponents. And unfortunately, I think that was, yeah, spear back on Empyrean.
Yeah, Empyrean will be taken down. Lumiere, meanwhile, solos Roshan, just one of the benefits to having the Ursa in your lineup. You can just sort of push in there and take that all by himself. So now all of a sudden, the Ursa has been largely kind of keeping to himself. 1-in-1 stat line, he's been very sort of maybe lane and lasted oriented now, but with the Aegis, that could change. Lumiere could start to get involved in these fights, especially if he finishes out that defusal. He's only a couple hundred gold away from it, so you push in, you have an angry bear who's going to be hard to push through. He's got the slow from the defusal blade to potentially prevent you from running away as well, and over on the other side of things, what is Boris looking at? He's got himself the lance. That's obviously useful, but I don't really think that's enough if the Ursa wants to go at him in a 1v1 scenario. So Boris is not exactly ready to fight, but the rest of the lineup, they're kind of grouped up here in the middle lane. They actually did smoke initially. That smoke is going to break, but they do get onto Michael. Buff Stomp's going to be there, and yeah, Michael will not survive. The duel even coming in from Mr. Jeans at the very end, so he's able to snag a little bit of extra damage for himself.
Yeah, and it's super important that they keep the momentum now from Benjaz's Blink. They want to keep these plays coming, but
oh, Sacred drops the arena onto 4. Spear Stun comes out as well. That's a nice stampede from Benjaz, though, trying to keep his teammates alive, but Widge is going to be taken down. Imperium, though, did come in with the Solar Guardian, so that's going to help keep a few of those heroes up and running. They've taken out Alone, and they're going to get much more than that. Alone falls, Sacred dead as well. A dropped, in Lumiere, he's just got to fall back. That is very well timed from the Dawnbreaker. The ult in there is sort of giving that little bit of extra durability. Benjaz as well with the Stampede, helping his teammates not leave the arena, obviously, but sort of dance their way around it and keep themselves up and running. And that should have been a beneficial play for Infamous. Instead, they lose 3. I think they're going to get the kill onto Empyrean here at least, so that's good for them, but they lost the tower in the process.
Yeah, it's a huge turnaround for TOOBASED, and everything looked pretty bad once Sacred trapped 3 of them in there, but they also corralled them all together for the Solar Guardian, and then they simply ran out of damage. Alone, without the BKB, was actually getting caught up by that center by a lot of the stuns from TOOBASED, and even though they were able to take out Mr. Jeans, again, he got everything off, and they made the gyrocopter strong, and if they can keep on winning fights with this gyro, that's where Boris can get to a point where he is the only real carry in this game. Of course, there is still a Lumiere Ursa who is running across the map in a very infamous fashion. As soon as they lose the fight, they smoke and then they look to kill you.
Yep. Right back on the offensive, able to take down Mr. Jeans, and well, unfortunate for the LC. Thought you would be safe. As you said, the second that fight gets lost, that's when Simply TOOBASED want to spread their lineup out, try to get as much farm as they possibly can. Instead, they lose their cohesion just as Infamous are going to try to push forward. So the question now is, what do Infamous do at this point, right? The Aegis is still in their hands for about 2 minutes. We do see another smoke play coming out, so it looks like the answer is just going to be, let's keep running at our opponents. It's been the plan for them all along, and I don't know if they're going to be stopping anytime soon. Not sure if they're going to maybe TP somebody up here to the tower just to maybe act as the bait, or if they're just looking for the full-on wrap. It looks like it's going to be the latter for now. Lumiere wants in. They're going to hit up Widge first. Not able to bring him down just yet, though. Widge is actually surviving for quite some time. That same combo comes out again. It's the Stampede into that Solar Guardian. Sacred dies. Michael is gone as well, and well, now they're going to be able to try to lock down... Oh, okay, they try to lock down Boris, but they actually lose the Fiend's Grip. Now with the duel coming in, they're actually turning this fight. Lumiere just can't dish out any damage. Benjaz will fall to some DOT, and actually Alone is in a nice position to just clean up everything. He's got an Ultra Kill now, and can he really get all the way in here? Widge is not going to make it easy for him, and Alone doesn't necessarily want to dive the tower, but he's got the DOT. It's just not coming in time. Alone dies, and A will finish the kill with the Brain Sap. So it could have been a posthumous Rampage. I'm not even sure if that's a thing, but A is at least able to clean it up. So they do get all 5 of those kills, but for Infamous, they lose pretty much everything on their own side.
Yeah, that was honestly a very convincing loss, and one where they really got caught up with their Ursa. Their Ursa was unable to really hit into anyone. I think they also got caught pretty unluckily with the Aegis timing out there, so there was no real factor to kind of bounce back with there. And unfortunately, a lot of that gold yet again goes over to Boris, who is still making progress towards an item. He eventually decided to jumped ship on the Ags train and is now getting a Sanjin Yasha instead, but he is still deathless, and that is a huge thing for TOOBASED. If they can keep Boris out of the danger zone and they can really stall this one out, again, it's going to end up in a situation where I genuinely think they can kind of bide their time and wait and get the game that they wanted to in the previous game. They want to look for these plays. An A? Okay.
Yeah. Briefly put under pressure there. He should be backing out. Homing missile is going to connect, and I mean, he's still alone under this tower, so they're looking for it. Mr. Jeans is going to push his way forward. This would make for a pretty easy duel target, but we've actually got to catch up to him first. He is leading them on quite the chase, but eventually, yeah, they'll run out of space. He gets hit up, duel comes in, Mr. Jeans will win it easily, and they took the tier 1 tower while the other half of the lineup was looking for that kill. So some efficient play out there from TOOBASED, although I say efficient, they did have to bring about 4 or 5 heroes up to the top lane, so maybe that's not ideal, but at this point, draw it out, find a kill if you can, get some extra damage into the hands of the LC. That's something that Gunnar, in that previous instance of the LC, really struggled with. I think he ended the game with like 40 damage in total. Mr. Jeans is already up to 30, so you're at least on a slightly better track than the previous mid LC.
Yeah, the biggest, scariest thing that really TOOBASED have to contend with right now is this Batrider BKB that was very freshly picked up. If they find themselves in too scary of an engagement, this game could look really hard for them. But I think getting these towers and then swapping where they're playing with their map is just really important. Something that they were never able to do in the previous game with that Morphling. They were actually able to get the top tower. So Boris now has all of this room to work with, and it feels like he's not really going to get pushed out anytime soon unless we have another big smoke rotation coming in from Sacred. And that's where I think Infamous are kind of struggling to find a place for Sacred to look for kills. Everyone is either a little bit too tanky or a little bit too set up, and I think that's where Sacred hasn't been able to find as many plays as he otherwise would. Because in very similar fashion, whenever you have Lumiere on this Ursa, you don't have the building damage, right? So you want every other aspect of your draft to just work that little bit easier, so it'll feel seamless going from kills into objectives, and you just use an overwhelming advantage to shore up some of your issues when it comes to the heroes you're playing. Unfortunately, still kind of waiting.
Well, Widge was able to steal the rebuke there, so he does have to get close to kind of make use of that, but he is going to at least have it as his disposal. Meanwhile, Nightmare onto Empyrean. So that's up for an easy spear stun, but I think they realize, yeah, there's other people here. That's not a fight that they really want to jump into headlong. So no initiation at that point, but they are still sort of staying grouped up here in this south side jungle, looking for, excuse me, some sort of opening for themselves, but nobody's really taking the bait.
Yeah, it's really just waiting around Roche respawning. Infamous don't have a reason to play the top side of the map until Roche is up, and same with TOOBASED. They don't want to fight them.
Get the Nightmare down onto the Centaur again. They'll hit him up with the Spear Stun. Solar Guardian from Empyrean, though, does get him into the fight, and Benjaz is actually not dead just yet. They will eventually bring him down, though, and yeah, Benjaz not going to be able to survive. Empyrean dies as well. Lumiere gets both of those kills, and now he actually connected with the Nightmare onto Boris. They're going to get the Spear Stun onto that Gyrocopter as well. And where's his backup? Mr. Jeans tries to hit him up with the press the attack, but it is far too late. Boris will die. Now the lasso deployed onto the Legion Commander. And I don't know for TOOBASED on that one. That's just heroes getting sort of caught out over and over again. I don't think that they saw that the Bane had picked up this Aether Lens. So with the extended cast range, he was able to sort of catch some heroes out with the Nightmare who normally would have assumed that they were safe.
Yeah, and Benjaz, unfortunately, he was just in a bad spot. He was forcing Empyrean to then ulti onto him, and then Sacred had the perfect follow-up with the arena. If that arena doesn't land after the Stampede already goes down, I think they really have a good chance at walking away from all of that. And unfortunately, Infamous being as seamless as they are, as soon as they decide to flip the map, they immediately go into the pit, and there's already going to be another 20 stacks on this Roche. They got to go in within this next overpower, otherwise TOOBASED have no shot at this Aegis.
Benjaz makes a jump onto Alone. Well, tried to make a jump, didn't really work out, and now Benjaz might be punished for it. There's Spear. The Spear doesn't have a stun to come out, but they do push him back. Lumiere, meanwhile, just tore his way through Empyrean, who... Well, that explains why he wasn't really moving much. He is DCing from the game, but unfortunately, he's already dead, so Not a whole lot that can be done on that point, but now Benjaz is going to try to fight his way out of this. No Stampede available, and I don't know if his teammates should really commit for this. Boris is sort of looking like he wants to go in. The Flat Cannon's been activated, and he does have a call down, but how far are you willing to go? There's a Nightmare already being cast that's going to lock somebody down. Lumiere is not very far away, so damage from that bear is going to be significant in this fight, and well, we'll see if TOOBASED actually want to take it, but it just seems like a situation here where they should, honestly, just be kind of falling back, and if Ben just has to be sacrificed, maybe that's just a sacrifice you have to make.
Yeah, unfortunately, Widge wasn't able to get either of the Mars spells. It's a sad situation where you end up getting Bulwark on Rubik, and you're like, oh, well, this is great. Maybe they lift possibly the Bat Rider or the Mars again here, but that's also where as soon as Lumiere catches up to everyone else, it is just going to be a full retreat. I can only imagine that Boris is just about to turn tail and run because this really does not look like a good situation. The craziest thing that could happen here is Widge ends up telekinesising alone into the gyrocopter, and then they just plant their feet and fight, which would be kind of funny, but I don't know if that's actually going to be the best situation, especially because A, it looks like he's about to sleep Boris. And then everything looks really sad for two base. This is a really bad situation.
Yeah, and maybe if this LC were in a better position, you could think about taking this fight because you'd have to press the attack, but it's just not there. I mean, Mr. Jeans has it, but he's just too far away right now. He's not going to be able to immediately join that fight. So all of their best options here for two base are either incredibly dependent on kind of luck going their way, or it's just going to be them trying to fall back. But for now, we continue to have the game paused up here because Empyrean is still not back into the server yet. So he continues to have some issues, and you really can't even necessarily go without him because he is sitting on a buyback right now. So if you're simply two-based, the buyback may not be massively useful, but you at least want to have it at your disposal. He could TP to that tier 2 tower and then try to join his teammates if there does end up being some sort of fight. So they will continue to wait, but at this point, Empyrean's been missing for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, who knows? Bad internet. North American bad internet. Do the hyphen ping, you know. Honestly, that's the most powerful alt chat line in the history of Dota.
Well, we do not have any word from the two-base side just yet, and honestly, you never really have to worry about it until the admin is actually the one sort of asking you what's going on. So they continue to wait things out. They've got plenty of time at this stage, but it does leave us in the middle of this team fight situation where it really doesn't look great for that two-base lineup. But who knows? The longer this pause goes on, the longer both teams have to maybe think things over. We've seen that happen in the past where an extended pause suddenly calls off a fight that was going to happen or leads into a fight that teams didn't think was going to be there because someone's slow in the reactions. I don't know. That's maybe getting a little bit too speculative, but you always have to sort of keep that in mind in terms of what could go down here. But let's see, what is Benjaz really working with at this point? We mentioned earlier there's no Stampede. He's already used his Stomp. Barrier is not going to be very useful. It's already been used. He has no Blink. He doesn't even have his Wand available either, so it really does seem at this point that he's basically just dead to rights. It's a matter of, do his teammates really want to go in to try and defend as... Oh, there we go. I was wondering which side that was coming up on. Alone says that they're ready to go, but we do still have to wait for Empyrean, and well, earlier on I said it's not a problem until the admin starts asking. Here comes the admin, wondering if there's any update for Empyrean, because this has been quite the DC.
Yeah, and who knows? Steam servers have been so iffy in the past few days that maybe there is just a 15-mile radius Steam outage in his area. You never know. That's what happened to me 3 days ago. Gotta
Yeah,
love Steam servers.
it's always great. You go and you look and you're like, what's going on? And the answer is you in particular are kind of getting hit pretty hard here. But it looks like Empyrean will be reconnecting. So, well, he's back into the server. We'll see if that has any bearing whatsoever. Mentioned earlier on, he does have buyback, but a buyback here would still require the TP to the tower because he doesn't have the Solar Guardian. So we are going to resume the game. We'll see how this fight breaks out. Benjaz is still going to get tracked down. That Nightmare did go onto Boris. It's immediately removed by Widge, but that means, yeah, there's no backup here. Boris just cuts his losses and tries to run, but Sacred blinks in, gets the arena into the spear stun, and nobody makes it out there. Thought maybe they could cut their losses, try and get Boris and Widge out, but it's just going to be everyone going down outside of the Legion Commander, as Mr. Jeans really hadn't been in the area in the first place.
Yep, and then A very peacefully TP's back to the wave because they are playing in front of all their lanes. Top though.
He's going to get dueled up. Empyrean comes in with a Solar Guardian, and okay, that felt a little too aggressive from the bat. He didn't have the lasso to really make that play happen. He just tried to sort of go in there and, I think, keep Mr. Jeans distracted long enough for reinforcements to arrive, but he didn't, I guess, anticipate that the LC was going to have that much damage in the backup from the Dawnbreaker, so that is going to be a bit of a freebie for the LC, but Mr. Jeans still has to get out of here. Honestly, he's got the TP, might just want to try for it now. Lumiere really can't even cancel his TP, there's no bash or anything of that nature. He just never tried to TP. That... Huh. That's a little confusing. I mean, if he'd have gone for that TP at any point, as I said, Lumiere, there's no Skull Basher. He would not have been able to stop it, and I don't think he takes you from 100 to 0 before your TP can complete. So, that is very unfortunate for Mr. Jeans. He sort of jukes himself a little bit, but now alone. Getting jumped in on again. Sacred's here to try and help out, though. He's going to drop down the arena. The lasso will be deployed. They pit up Boris, and they do have the damage to bring him down, and now Benjaz actually may be falling as well. This Centaur is not going to be able to survive. Meanwhile, they got the Fiend's Grip down onto Widge, keeping him locked in place for a little bit, and well, here comes the other half of that pincer. Michael's making his way over. Lumiere wants into the fight as well, but Empyrean used the Tumbler Sword to get onto the high ground, but the Will-O-Wisp is going to sort of pull him back in. Lumiere now connecting with the slow from the Diffusal, and that's about as easy a kill as the Ursa is going to be able to pick up.
Yeah, Infamous, again, they just suddenly TP 4 heroes. Maybe that's the Infamous tell, is as soon as they see you in a creep wave, they TP 5 heroes. That's minus 500 gold. Maybe teams really just need to get some of these lane wards to know the scope of these fights that are actually breaking out, because it feels like Infamous are always catching their opponents off guard. It feels like there really isn't any proper way for their opponents to react to this aggression, and sure, they're forcing their opponents in some pretty spectacular ways, but it's crazy how successful it's been in the few games we've seen so far.
It's kind of the same situation, or similar situation, I think we would say, to the old OG strats, where they know that they're going to run at you. You know that they're going to run at you, but somehow you still don't actually see it coming until the connection is made, and all of a sudden you're stuck in the fight. So it does seem a little bit strange. Feels like Simply TOOBASED in some instances should know what's coming, and they're just not really prepared for it. But a lot of that, as you were alluding to, does come down to the fact that their vision is incredibly limited. They have no vision on their opponent's side of the map, and almost none on their own side.
Yeah, this Radiant Triangle, this is a real risky spot to play in. I think they're going to back out as soon as they see the Mars coming over. We're finishing our BKB on Boris before we actually start a fight, I think, here, even though pickoffs.
Tyrion gets hit up. A finishes the kill. Lasso, meanwhile, actually pulled in the LC. They throw down the Will-O-Wisp just to make sure this Legion Commander has no means of getting out, and that's going to be another kill. Mr. Jeans will fall. Widge was able to get away thanks to the Stampede. Never mind, he runs away, but can't actually outrun Lumiere and A as they find another kill, and well, they're in their opponent's base. There's not a whole lot they can do here. Those tier 3 towers aren't even vulnerable yet, so they do have to back it up a little bit and go after those tier 2s first, but this is exactly where Infamous love to be. The fact that they can push this far forward with zero consequences shows how much control they have over this match right now.
Yeah, it's just so simple for them to go from space to space, and now 25 seconds on the Aegis, so Lumiere will need to possibly play more conservatively, but I also feel like he's just going to continue on the warpath that he's really created on this hero. He doesn't even have a blink. He's just running at them, literally running at them headlong, and now they're even looking down bottom at Benjaz.
Not
And look,
able to
4
close the
heroes.
gap. And Benjas very smartly,
Oh,
yeah, TP out of there. You don't want to be there. That is not a fun spot to be in, so he is at least able to get himself away, and TOOBASED can at least dodge that. Gang can sort of reset things a little bit here, and plays like that are going to be important for them. You take a look at Boris, he's farming over on the opposite side of the map, and he is getting, actually I was going to say close to the BKB, I think he's got it. So that is going to be coming out to him, and those are the kind of plays that they need. Boris is still probably their best shot in terms of mounting some sort of comeback, but he needs more space.
yeah. We just need more time. We're still working on this BKB. I think finally Boris is an ogre axe away. I think he might even disassemble it, but you're always under threat here. I think he's pretty safe in the top lane just because not only is Mr. Gene standing right beside him, but there's no real way for Infamous to get on top of him. Ooh, if only you had a blink on Mr. Gene's, maybe there's a situation there, but that's also something that Infamous do so well. They're so good at keeping control over their towers. They keep these tier 1s alive for so long. I guarantee if this bottom tier 1 tower is just not there, they don't get to make half the plays that they've been making throughout the entire game. And now, on the tier 3 tower, it's very difficult for this Ursa to do any substantial damage to these buildings, but here it comes. There's Glyph available for TOOBASED, but it still feels like they're just having to respond to everything in a full 5-man, where Infamous are now finally spreading across the map and just pulling incredibly far ahead.
They are at the position now where we can group up for objectives, and if we force a maneuver out from our opponents, then they can spread out and try to farm, but he spread out maybe a little bit too far. He does get hit up by the duel, and they should be able to finish him off. Sacred, though, he comes in looking for the spear, did not drop the arena. And that means Benjas is going to be able to just walk away. The BKB actually came out from him. Excuse me, not the BKB. There is no BKB. He's just able to run under his own power. Am I crazy? No, that was press the attack. Thank you. I'm losing my mind here right now. Temporary magic immunity there for Benjas. It doesn't actually get him away from the fight, however. So Lumiere is able to bring him down, and now if you're Infamous, well, I mean, they take this ancient stack. That's nice. I don't really think that they need it, but you sure as hell don't want your opponents to have it. So they continue to try and take these resources away. They push the net worth lead out to 16k, and it's not looking good here for that TOOBASED side. Win probability sitting at 94% for their opponents, so they have a long road ahead of them if they want to mount the comeback, but at least they're trying to do something. As Widge, nifty play to blink away initially, but the lasso is going to pull him back in, and they will still find their kill.
Yep. It really feels like they do need to keep looking at all the TP's bottom, all looking for Mr. Gene's.
Well, Empyrean trying to come in to help, and he is taking up a lot of attention here. Not quite enough, though. A comes back in for that Fiend's Grip, so Empyrean goes down, Mr. Gene's falls as well, and Infamous, it's like any time that they want a kill, they just will it into existence. We want to kill somebody. Oh, look, there's somebody. Boom, we have it. It's just
not fair.
And yeah, there we go. Speaking of it, Lumiere says, hey, I want to kill somebody. Oh, look, here's Boris, and he just finds it, and now his teammates are pushing the high ground again.
And it feels awful, if I'm being honest, because they could just be pushing this bottom tower, but you just get to kill a gyro for it. They are so disinterested with actually ending this game through killing structures. It's the type of game where Infamous want your opponents to GG out because it's going to take them longer to kill your base than it is for them to kill you. Like, look at this. This is insane.
Yeah, they're not getting through this very quickly, that's for sure. But slow and steady, as the saying goes. Yeah, Alone's just a reverse goalkeeper here. Ooh. Duel. There's the duel. Okay. But, well, the disc is going to come into play there, so they're not going to be able to get the duel win, but Alone should still die. They do bring him down. Widge died as well. He'll buy back immediately, but while that was happening, Infamous were attempting to take a second lane of racks, but as we said, they don't hit these buildings all that significantly, and the tier 3 is still standing by the time TOOBASED get back into position. They do try to push their way forward, but the Will-O-Wisp thrown down by Michael. Very nicely placed. Sacred comes in as well with the arena into the spear stun. Widge dropping low. Going to try to keep himself alive, but he will fall. Empyrean and Benjas die as well, and buybacks are not in a great position. Empyrean is going to use one there, but while he's getting back into the fight, Mr. Gene's just getting absolutely blown up. Lumiere just does not care about anything anyone is throwing onto him. as he will run that kill down. They at least get Sacred, but that's really at this point just not going to matter. Empyrean dies a second time. Boris, BKB active, but what do you do about this bear? Lumire's just going to continue to chase. The second the BKB wears off, he's just going to hit him with the diffusal. Doesn't even need to wait that long. Has the physical damage. Now they get the Fiend's Grip onto the LC, and that's it. The GG will be called. And Infamous, they run at you in game 1, they win the game. They run at you in game 2, they win the game. It's, they make it look easy. Obviously it's not, but just firing on all cylinders right now.
Yeah, and A did spoil 2 rampages in that game. I also want to make it known, the bastard. But still, really clean, really exciting games from Infamous. Like always, it's just how they like to play Dota. I think teams really need to consider that if there's a team this stylistically different from everyone else, do we take out the coddle? Do we decide to value what they're actually throwing down here? Because I think if anything can be said, TOOBASED were severely underestimating what this coddle was capable of doing, and I think once some of the maybe higher echelon teams end up going versus Infamous, we're gonna have to see if we are gonna see some more specifics, some more value bands coming out versus them. And I mean, Infamous, they got second at the last BTS Pro Series 8. They're definitely not the little guy here. They're definitely here to play, but they just play Dota in such an intriguing and interesting way. It's always a fun watch.
Yeah, and I think that was one thing for that Infamous lineup. It's pretty much unchanged from what we saw at the last Pro Series, and I had a stat saved somewhere. There it was, right. So you mentioned they finished second at the last Pro Series. They lost, in total, across Pro Series 8, 6 games against No Ping, who are now Thunder Predator. Against literally every other team at that event, they lost 4 games. So if you are not No Ping, you had difficulties dealing with Infamous, and we see, simply TOOBASED, they're not No Ping, they have difficulties with Infamous. This team plays so well right now. They know exactly what they want, and we mentioned it in the draft, somebody at some point is going to have to take the coddle away from Michael. That's going to lead him to play a bunch of other Position 4 heroes that he's insanely good at, but the coddle is just too much. It just sets up so much for them. He sets up his own lane and then sort of goes to help alone out as well, so all of a sudden you have 2 lanes that are benefiting from a singular support pick.
Yeah, and call it growing pains, call it whatever you will, but simply TOOBASED, they haven't played with this roster for very long. I can only imagine that this was for this tournament, but we'll have to see if they can try and find some sort of mesh that you just don't want to be last year. Because of course, like you said yesterday, only one team gets eliminated here, but still, you just don't want to be the bottom of the barrel. You still want to prove that you can play Dota at least a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, when only one team gets eliminated from the group stage and you are that team, it feels like it might sting just that little bit more. But much like we were talking about with Hikori yesterday having lost 4 games in a row, there's still so much time left. So if you're TOOBASED, sure, this is going to sting a little bit going down 0-2, but you have so much more to play with in terms of time. You have more time for this lineup to get used to playing with some of these new faces. So I think we're going to see better from Simply TOOBASED as we go along. But for now, they do end up falling a little bit short. But with that, Infamous pull off the 2-0 sweep, and that is going to do it here for day 2 of the group stage of BTS Pro Series 9. We are getting ready to sort of shut things down here. We will be back tomorrow afternoon, and we do have to make a little bit of a note there because tomorrow we are starting... excuse me. We are starting a little bit earlier on than we have been for the past 2 days. Going to be getting things started at... time is hard. 1 p.m. Pacific time, I believe it was. So about 2 hours earlier than we did today and yesterday because we have an extra series that will be played. So 4 best of 2s on the schedule for tomorrow. But again, for today, we are done and dusted. ET, any closing thoughts here for day 2?
No, just come see us tomorrow again. Lots of fun Dota, lots of good games to be played, and watch Infamous put more kids into the ground. That's really all we're here to watch at this point.
Yeah, they're just kind of snopping on folks. So yeah, we will see you tomorrow afternoon. Spend maybe some of your Halloween with us. But for now, we will be shutting things down. So thank you all so very much for watching, and we will see you tomorrow.